either to economic.
Just when you announced it, I mean, after a few days, we saw something else.
But within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours.
Yes.
So you had your first one when yesterday.
Yesterday.
And then a few hours after you.
Yes.
After yours.
Yes.
Then we had one addressed by.
Truth Forum.
Yes, one addressed by the. What's the moment of truth about, and why do you decide to? Is it one of the strategies that the new communications team is coming up with?
Yes, exactly. Randy, the Moment of Truth series is an initiative which will mainly focus on assessing the performance of the Akufo-Addo government. So, like the name suggests, Moment of Truth, we would, through this initiative, subject the representations that government make on various issues to strict proof and assess the veracity of the claims government officials make to us as citizens. And so we know that at the end of the day, we will succeed in exposing the deceptions of this government and in exposing the abysmal performance of this government, because that is what we have witnessed under them 22 months or so that they have been in office. The reality or the fact is that this MPP government rode on the back of many lofty, utopian, mouth-watering promises to power. Today, evidence abounds that they are not delivering on all their flagship promises to the people of this country on the basis of which they were elected. And we in the NDC believe that the promises that we make to the electorate during elections must mean something to us. When we are elected on the basis of these promises, a social contract is forged between the electorate and government. And it then behoves on government to implement these promises in the interest of the people who voted them into office. And so yesterday, for example, the maiden edition was occasioned by the MPP's claim that they are delivering on many of their promises. Clearly, Randy, that cannot be the case. That claim is not supported by the facts on the ground. That claim is palpable falsehood. And that is why we took the pain to take, the people of this country and the media through the many failed promises of this administration for us to know that this government is performing abysmally. And that is why we are reeling under the excruciating economic conditions that we currently find ourselves in. I don't know if I can zoom into the main issues.
Please do.
You see, government or the MPP, whilst in opposition, promised us that if elected, they were going to transform Ghana within 18 months. Randy, I'm very sure that you remember that promise by then opposition leader Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
I have the video.
Yes. Now, not too long ago, we heard him admit that Ghanaians are going through hardship. The president himself admitted that. And if you look at paragraph 10 of the 2019 budget statement presented to the August House of Parliament, the finance minister also concedes that Ghanaians are going through a lot of hardship. And so that, for me, is an admission of failure. It is an admission of the fact that government has not delivered the transformation and the comfort they promised the people of this country. Because if they had delivered that transformation in 18 months, they will not be telling us in 22 months, after 22 months, that, hey, we know you are going through hardship. It means that they haven't achieved that transformation yet. And that, for me, is fundamental. Let me also indicate that we in the NDC are not saying that the MPP or government must implement all their promises within the 22, should have implemented all their promises within the 22 months that they have been in office. We are holding them to the very standards they set for themselves. And the standard was simple. We will transform Ghana within 18 months. If you look at many of their flagship promises, they gave us the timelines themselves. For example, the president promised that he was going to deliver 51 factories by the end of his first year, 2017. Or at least we will see 51 factories springing up in this country. Today, Randy, the question is, where are the factories? Where are the factories? Instead of building these factories in consonance with their promises to the people of this country, they are going around commissioning and recommissioning existing private businesses and appropriating these existing businesses as part of the One District, One Factory initiative, which is a clear, if you like, which clearly defeats the position they took whilst in opposition, because this One District, One Factory initiative was supposed to create jobs. These existing factories already have a workforce. And so if you go around commissioning these factories, what you are doing is that, in effect, you are not adding any, jobs. You are not creating any jobs, because these factories have existed. Some of them have existed for the past 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. Look at the list of 79 factories which they released last week. You see the Boots and Nose company in Kumasi, a company which has been in existence
the
for
list
more than
is
10
out?
years. Yes, the 79 factories. The coordinator has been speaking to the media, and she mentions factories like Everpure, Kinapharma, B5. During the Greater Accra Regional Tour of the President only last week, he went to Botiano, English, Amanfrom to commission another one there, which is a Sunda Ghana Limited factory, specifically called GH Pro, and they are into the production of diapers. That is a factory which has been in existence for the past 7 years. You see, so that in itself shows that government has failed on that promise of one district, one factory. You look at the one village, one dam promise. Today we are not seeing dams. We are seeing a redefinition of dams by the MPP, where dugouts and excavated ponds are being represented as dams, when we know that these are not dams. And even with that, how many can you count? They can only show us a handful of these dugouts and excavated ponds. But we were not, in fact, nobody held a gun to the head of Dr. Bawumia to tell us that for 2018 alone, they were going to deliver 560 dams. And so it is justifiable for us to hold them to account and say, where are the 560 dams you promised for 2018 alone? And there again, the $1 million per constituency promise is another promise. These were their main, flagship promises. By now, Randy, every constituency in this country should have received $2 million from government. But we know that that is not the case. In fact, government is even strangulating the District Assembly Commons Fund. And that is affecting development in our local areas, the municipalities and all that. Everything is at a standstill because government has failed to deliver on that promise. The bureaucratic institutions that it has put in place, are rather diverting these monies for needless expenditures and ventures, which clearly are not in the interest of the ordinary citizen. And then you remember their famous promise to pay all contractors within their first 100 days. Now, when I meet my brothers from the MPP, the question I ask them is that, have you paid the contractors? Because for the first time, Randy, in the history of Ghana, we are hearing get fund contractors threatening demonstrations. I have never heard that before. We are hearing get fund contractors threatening school closures, the closure of the schools they built, because government is refusing to pay them. And what saddens me in all this is that that is having a debilitating effect on the banking sector and the financial sector as a whole. That is why non-performing loans are going up and the banks are suffering. And so today, the government, which promised to provide a congenial atmosphere for the growth of the financial sector, is strangulating that sector. When they took office, the financial and insurance sector had recorded a growth rate of 22.3% for the last quarter of 2016 alone. Randy, 22.3%. That is what they came to meet. Today, as we speak, that sector has contracted for the past 24 months, such that the growth rate for the financial sector is negative 13.1%. The financial sector is growing in the negatives. And the economic messiah, the economic wizard, the economic whiz kid of the MPP, Dr. Bawumia, is not perturbed about this. He would rather concern himself with technological interventions like drone technology and Ghana Post GPS, which have all turned out to be misplaced priorities. Then they are promised to our cocoa farmers that they are going to support the cocoa sector, support their businesses and all that. When all they have done in the past 22 months is the very opposite of that. You come into office, you come and meet many, over 200 cocoa road projects commenced by the previous government. You have abandoned all those projects such that these roads have deteriorated, causing the nation a lot of financial losses. You promise to support cocoa farmers, but you turn around to sell not for sale fertilizers to cocoa farmers at 80 Ghana cities. Not for sale fertilizers to them. The farmers could not afford these fertilizers. And Randy, you know that on the 20th of November 2018, these fertilizers got expired. 2 weeks before they got expired, this government called the farmers again that come for the fertilizer, this time around for free. And so this is a clear case, a classical case, what the lawyers will call locus classicus, of willfully causing financial loss. So they say that is why cocoa production has seen a decline from the 960,400 metric tons that we left behind to 900,000 metric tons, which is equivalent to a 7.2% decline in our national cocoa output. So there are promises to cocoa farmers and to the cocoa sector, again, has not been met. And then you look at their promises to drivers. Before the 2016 election, you saw drivers in the city of Accra with Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's posters on their cars, drivers for change. Today, they are all gnashing their teeth in regret because they are saying that the president has deceived them. He promised them lower prices for fuel. Today, what is the cost of petrol? What is the cost of diesel? A gallon of petrol, which was going at the time for 14 Ghana cedis, is today being sold at 23 Ghana cedis. And that is partly as a result of government's mismanagement of the economy, because you know the exchange rate factor in the calculation of fuel prices and so on. If the exchange rate had been stable, the prices of fuel would have been stable, or at least would have come down. And then the big one, the exchange rate, which the MPP made a lot of noise about in the run-up to the 2016 elections. You remember the economic lectures organized by Dr. Bawumia. The last one he did was titled Ghana's Economy, a Foundation of Straw or Concrete. I don't know if you remember that. Randy, in that statement, Dr. Bawumia told us that the main yardstick or the main barometer for assessing the strength of the fundamentals of every economy is determined by the strength of the exchange rate of that country. Today, what is the state of our exchange rates? He said a lot of things about that. In fact, when they came into office, after their first 100 days, Dr. Bawumia organized a press conference, told us that he had arrested the dollar and had handed over the keys to the IGP. Today, you need 5 cedis or more to get a dollar. At the time they came in, you needed 4.2 Ghana cedis. Now you need more than 5 Ghana cedis. Same for the euro. When they came in, you needed 4 Ghana cedis, 40 pesos for 1 euro. Now you need 5 cedis, 40 pesos. You need 6 cedis, 30 pesos for a pound. At the time they came in, you needed only 5 cedis, 20 pesos. Check the CFA. All our sisters and the traders who go to the French countries to import things are now suffering because they have seen a continuous erosion of their capital and profit margins because our city is even struggling against the CFA. The CFA, Randy. And then all the noise they made about our ballooning public debt and how the money was in Ghana, how we had a lot of resources, that there wasn't the need for us to borrow. In only 22 months, and even before I say that, Randy, you know that from the days of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah till 2016, when we were leaving office, the total public debt of Ghana stood at 120 billion Ghana cedis. Yesterday, I heard the MPP say 122. It is 120 billion because the Controller and Accountants General and the Auditor General have corrected that figure, that it was 120 billion we left for them. In only 22 months, they have accumulated debt of 50 billion Ghana cedis with very little to show on the ground. We constructed the rich hospitals, the Ghana Maritime Authority hospitals, the Circle Dubai Interchange, Terminal 3, the airport projects we did, the road projects we did, the many educational facilities we built, and so on. Today you ask the MPP, show us what you have done with the 50 billion, and they cannot pinpoint to you any physical capital projects they have used these monies for. When we were leaving office, the percentage of capital expenditure to GDP was 4.5%. And they made a lot of noise about that. They said 4.5% was too low. Today, the percentage of capital projects to GDP is around 2.5%, about half what we left for them, when they have actually had more resources in terms of the loans they have contracted, and even in terms of the oil revenue that they have gotten as a government. And then they have promised not to run a family and friends government, which we raised yesterday. On Saturday, the 17th of January 2016, in Kumasi, specifically at the MPP's delegate conference, then opposition leader Nana Addo Kwaku had promised that he was not going to operate a family and friends government. Randy, today we have seen him practice family and friends, nepotism and cronism in a way that Ghana has never seen. This government is the most nepotistic in the history of Ghana, and I dare say in the history of the world. You've seen the president giving appointments to his daughter, cousins, former wives, I don't know how to describe them, brothers and so on.
Maybe not former wives.
Former what? Girlfriends.
Not former wives. Not former girlfriends.
Virginia Hesse is the one I'm referring to, the ambassador for Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Friends and so on. And that is what we will actually be dwelling on when we have the second edition of our Moment of Truth series.
What?
Because we will
you mean the family and friends?
The unprecedented levels of nepotism in this government must be exposed for the people of this country to know.
Okay.
You see, and they promised. Right? Do you remember? We will protect the public purse. We will protect the public purse. We will nip the culture of corruption in the bud. Fight against corruption. Today we are seeing the very opposite of that. Because today we are seeing the wanton dissipation and abuse of the public purse. How can government justify the $10 million Ghana cedis it spent on that dubious fraudulent Ghana Post GPS app, which was totally needless, Randy, because the system was already available to Ghanaians and could be accessed by all Ghanaians at no cost to the state. And yet, we paid 10 million Ghana cedis for that app, which has now been rendered redundant. Nobody is using that app in this country. How many people? If right now you ask, your production team members here to give us their digital addresses for their homes, they will not have it, because the reality is that it is, excuse my language, a useless system. And yet we have spent 10 million of the taxpayers' money on such an expenditure. We've appointed an obese government. Remember when he was in opposition, the famous tape says Professor Mills promised you a lean government, but now he's giving you a lean kinky. I'm sure we all remember that. Today, has the president delivered a lean government? He has delivered the most obese and the most bloated government that we have ever seen in the history of Ghana. 111 ministers. Today, Ghana has become an object of international ridicule. You travel around, you meet your friends, and they tell you, hey, it's your president who has appointed 111 ministers. And they have nothing to show for that. Employing thousands of people at the Office of Government Machinery. During our 4 years in office, the total allocations, if you aggregate all the allocations that we gave the Office of Government Machinery, it comes to a total of just about 1.8 billion. That is between 2012 to 2016. Total allocations to the Office of Government Machinery. But Randy, do you know that in 2018 alone, this government allocated a whopping 1.9 billion for the Office of Government Machinery. So their allocation for that agency alone, for 2018 alone, is more than what we allocated during the 4 years that we were in office under the Mahama administration. So clearly, the MPP are not delivering on their promises to the people of Ghana. And having realized that they are losing favor with the masses, they have resorted to lies to save their fast-sinking image and to create a false impression that they've been busy working, when the evidence, is to the contrary. And that is why, as a responsible opposition, as citizens and not spectators, we have decided not to sit aloof. But we will come out with the facts and keep government on its toes. That, hey, enough of the talk. Enough of the sweet rhetorics. Set up, implement your promises, deal with the mess you have created, and improve the livelihoods of the suffering masses in this country. Randy, thank you for the
Well, I know that you've prepared your responses to this, but okay, it looks like per strategy, the NPP, upon hearing of this, also decided to also hold something they call the Truth Forum. So hours after this, they also held one addressed by.
And Randy, we welcome that because you see, we want to engage in that intellectual, issue-based campaign going into 2020. We welcome that, but I doubt if they will have
where a certain percentage of their IGFs were retained. So they had
mystified. Yes, because with that the economy, you are looking at
factories in every district or in all districts in the country. That was the promise. And it was on the basis of that promise that the electors voted for them. At the time they were making those promises, Uncle Kwaku Baako was in Ghana. We never heard Uncle Kwaku Baako say that, wait a minute, these promises are utopian and lofty, that you find problems with its implementation. And so be realistic in the way you go about it. We never heard him. Now, they make the promises, and on the basis of that, get power. And when we, the citizenry, are holding them to account, Uncle Kwaku said, no, they have redefined it. They have redefined the policy. They have repackaged the policy. So
he said they took it to Parliament. That's what they have done. No, they have not hidden it. That's what he says.
That is a betrayal of trust. And the fact that they took that to Parliament does not justify that. Because there is a social contract between them and the people of this country. We are waiting for the factories. You cannot tell us that post-power, you have redefined your promises. You have repackaged your promises. And you see, what he is saying is at variance with what government spokespersons are saying on this matter. Because they are not saying that they have redefined or repackaged the policy. They are saying that they are delivering.
Maybe they don't know.
So Uncle Kwaku Baako knows better than.
No, he's quoting from a document.
No, but I'm saying, so you see the confusion of thoughts. Government says we stand by the promise, we are delivering. Uncle Kwaku Baako said, no, they are not delivering on that promise. In fact, the promise has been repackaged. The promise of building one factory in every district has transmogrified into stimulus packages. That is what he's telling us.
No.
So you think that
it says that's even in the minority.
I don't
think you should
Randy,
do that.
You think that if they had told the people of this country that vote for us, we will provide stimulus packages and support,
it wouldn't have been new.
Would that have been new?
It wouldn't have been
You think that they would have gotten the mileage they got? No. So this is a clear betrayal of trust. And so the justification that Uncle Kwaku Baako is putting forth is neither here nor there. We are holding them accountable for the promises they made.
Right.
They cannot edit, adjust, or modify those promises. That would be a betrayal of trust. And so
it appears they've done just that.
And that is wrong. That is why we are saying that they are failing on their promises. Because you see, he says that the essence of the program is to industrialize. Yes, but not just that. The main essence was also about job creation.
You industrialize and you create jobs.
So when you go and recommission Sunda Ghana Limited's GH Pro, which has been in existence for the past 7 years, what jobs have you created? Same workforce.
If the company, for example, expands its production capacity,
it
brings some people.
So far, have we seen any expansion?
At least at Healthy Life,
that's right.
I heard Mr. Nyama say that it will help them bring on board 300 new.
It will help them.
Yes.
And no, so we are talking about
like they're getting an extra plant.
No, so we are not talking about
no, but the man talking
is
talking based on reality.
We are asking you to account for the promises you have given. We are giving more promises that it will lead to this. So far, have we seen any situation where these existing factories, which they claim they have supported, have employed more people? No. The Kina Farmer example is the bulls and nurses, the beef, same workforce. So they have failed to deliver on that promise. And Uncle Kwaku Baako should not hold brief for them. If you do that, you add insult to injury, and it doesn't help. Secondly, the issue about macroeconomic indices.
Yes.
He says that our macroeconomic environment has a positive
overall picture.
No, it doesn't. You see, what is the essence of macroeconomic indices? Randy. You stabilize macroeconomic indices. Number one, to create a congenial atmosphere for the private sector and the financial sector. Is that not the case? So if you have a situation, Uncle Kwaku, where the financial sector and insurance sector has contracted and is now growing in the negatives, negative 13.1%, then what is the essence of the macroeconomic indices you are talking about? Number two, the net effects of macroeconomic indices is that it must have a positive bearing or a positive impact on standard of living. When the president himself has, at the time that the president himself has admitted that Ghanaians are reeling under excruciating hardship, and we all know that cost of living has gone up and is currently unbearable for the vast majority of the people of this country, you cannot be talking to us about macroeconomic indices. In any case, the NPP has no moral justification to talk about macroeconomic indices as proof of their performance relative to the management of the economy. Because when they were in opposition, I'm sure you remember how they bastardized and rubbished all the macroeconomic gains that we had shown.
Wow.
The first time Ghana recorded single-digit inflation and actually maintained that for more than 20 months was under our tenure. The highest growth rate ever recorded in this country was recorded under our tenure in 2014, a growth rate of 14%. And yet, the NPP told us that we don't eat figures. Why is inflation now fried rice and chicken that we eat? So, principle here. He has always stood for principle. Let's not change the standards. They have never believed in that. In fact, Dr. Bawumia, I remember, organized a number of lectures and told us that the single-digit inflation that we were speaking about was not reflecting in the prices of commodities on the markets. What has changed? That the MPP is now flaunting macroeconomic indices before our face as proof of their better management of the economy. That is neither here nor there. And Randy, what are we even talking about relative to the exchange rates? What was the promise? The promise was to stabilize the exchange rates. They didn't promise lower depreciation. When Dr. Bawumia held that press conference and said that they had arrested the dollar, what was he talking about? Lower rate of depreciation? No. He was talking about stability. So if 4.2 was a disaster per the standards of Uncle Kwaku baako, then what is 5 Ghana cedis? If 4.2 was a disaster, then what about 5 Ghana cedis? Then he says, oh, it's about the fundamentals of our economy. And so...
Is that not the truth?
Okay. But when Dr. Bawumia was organizing those lectures, Uncle Kwaku baako was in this country. Did he say that, Dr. Bawumia,
on this platform,
your promises are misplaced because you need to look at the fundamentals of our economy? In any case, Dr. Bawumia is not oblivious of what all the economic theories that Uncle Kwaku baako is postulating here. He's very much aware that to stabilize the exchange rate...
He's expected to know better.
Yes. He is expected to know that to stabilize the exchange rate, you need to improve on our balance of trade deficits and our economic fundamentals. And that is exactly what he promised. So now you cannot say that, hey, Ghanaians do not have a right to question government for the alarming depreciation of the Ghana cedi.
He hasn't said that.
Okay, he's saying that we also fail.
He said you
so
lack,
we lack the moral authority.
Yes.
Okay, so we cannot criticize them because we also fail. Are we now the standard for the NPP? That is cheap equalization.
Are you not?
I'm sure the NPP will be very furious with
anyone
who suggests that
you position yourself as a better alternative. Yeah.
No, and they are saying that, because the NDC, you see, we were in office, they said we were incompetent in managing the economy. We had destabilized the exchange rates. So they told Ghanaians to vote for them, to come to power and stabilize the exchange rates. Now you are failing to stabilize the exchange rates. The dollar is now at 5 Ghana cedis. We question you and you say, the NDC also failed, so it is okay if we have failed. Is that what Uncle Kwaku and the NPP are telling us? That they want to rationalize their failure? You understand? So that is neither here nor there. And Randy, even if you look at the so-called macroeconomic indices they are speaking about, it is nothing to write home about. You see, look at growth rates. What we are currently experiencing is a growth rate propelled by the oil sector. That is what you call a convoluted jobless growth rate.
But that's what accounted for the 14%.
Thank you.
You touted
When
Thank
we
you.
achieved 14%,
in 20
non-oil,
That's the
2014,
point I'm saying.
non-oil,
All the
the
same.
highest non-oil growth ever recorded was also recorded under the tenure of the NDC, 8.2%.
All right. Okay.
As a matter of fact, non-oil growth for 2016 was 5%.
Yes.
Check non-oil growth for 2017,
It's
4.8.
it's lower, yeah.
It's lower. So even if you look at
That's
non-oil
factual.
growth, they have performed abysmally, in fact, worse than we performed. So that settles the matter of macroeconomic. It is clear that they have failed. You understand? And Dr. Bawumia should focus on stabilizing the cedi, arresting the dollar, creating a congenial atmosphere for the financial sector as head of the economic management team. And she should drop this new love for technology. That is not his primary duty. All these new technology. Finally, the issue of our promise to build 200 community-based senior high schools. Uncle Kwaku Baako's position on this matter is factual. Yes, we awarded contracts for about 124, and at the time we were leaving, about 47 to 50 had been completed. But we are talking about a government which promised to construct 350, Uncle Kwaku, not 200, 350 secondary schools.
From the scratch.
Yes, within their first 22 months. This is something the president said. Now, 2 years down the line, he himself gave that timeline, 2 years. 22 months down the line. Can you tell me of a single secondary school which has been constructed or which is at, any stage of construction? They can't even boast of a 6-unit classroom block. What have they constructed? You promised 350 schools. Today, in the city of Accra, the capital city of Ghana, school children are sitting on stones. School children are sleeping outside because of the congestion in our schools. Where are the 350? At least we did 50 out of 200.
No, you did less than 50,
47.
but it doesn't matter.
47 out of, and you realize after we left, some of the projects were completed by the contractors.
13 were added to
8.
this
You
year's
understand?
intake. Yeah.
Exactly. So the point here is that compare our track record to their track record. Assess their promise to build 350 objectively and tell us your verdict, whether or not they have succeeded in delivery on that promise or they have failed. The answer is that they have failed. And finally, yes, this issue about the Ghana Maritime, I appreciate the context within which Uncle Kwaku Baaku makes these, arguments. I agree. But we still have to make the point that, Randy, we achieved all those projects because of a deliberate policy by the ex-Wal NDC regime to allow state agencies to retain a portion of their IGF, which should have rather gone to central government. And that is why we're able to build all these hospitals and these projects. Right. Now, juxtapose that to the capping policy which has been introduced by this government, where government is actually taking more from these state institutions. And that is strangulating and crippling these state institutions. So you realize that even with respect to that, we have a better record. Uncle Kwaku, look at the promise they gave, the drivers in this country, the importers and exporters, the cocoa farmers. And look at the actual deliverables today. Are you impressed?
All right. Okay.
I don't think you should be impressed about
Randy.
this.
All right. Yes.
So all we said in our press conference yesterday were the facts. And I know that the Ghanaian people identify with the issues we raise. Thank you.
All right.
I find it quite intriguing, when I hear statements to the effect that because the president admitted in a very honest way that we have challenges, call them hardships in this country, then that is actually an admission of failure. I'm really wondering, and that he then could not be talking of any achievements. I can remember President Mahama. He told all of us that he had chewed the bone. We had chewed the meat to the bone. But at the same time, he was tooting achievements.
That was about single spine.
No, but he was still telling us that he was delivering things, even though we had chewed the meat to the bone.
That was not hardship.
You don't get the knowledge here. I am still making that point. It wasn't hardship, was hardship, it's immaterial. We had chewed the meat to the bone, meaning that there was no money. The fiscal space was so limited, but he was delivering. It was still delivering. So that's the point I'm making, that point should not be brought in at all. Randy, let me tell you something. 350 schools.
From the scratch.
if this government had embarked on that project now, I would say it is a most irresponsible and insensitive government. That's what I would have said. You've come, somebody says he wants to build 200, though it was 124. The person had built, the administration, had built 47. And you want to go and start 350 from scratch? You were saying so when you were in opposition. You've gained power. When you come, I'm telling you, pragmatic governance. When you come, the first thing to do is to seek to complete the unfinished business. That's prudence.
Well, the only thing with that is that if after the program you go back and listen to that promise, what President Akufo-Addo said was that, because I took time to listen to it about 10 times yesterday, what he said was that we're going to do 350 from the scratch in addition.
Randy, it was not going to be possible. You can take him.
No, I'm not saying it could be possible or not, but I'm saying that he said that in appreciating that there will be existing projects and all that.
But you see, we guys should be able to sanitize the environment and put out the alternatives. Take a classic example, the one-term premium. Was a manifesto pledge by the NDC for election 2008. Okay, captured in their manifesto.
Right.
When they came to office 2009, what did happen? What time did they change their view on that? They took it throughout to election 2012 before they realized they couldn't do it. It didn't take away the entirety of their integrity, because you deliver on other issues that people appreciate. The election, when you are going, there's a basket of issues. So you might have failed in executing one-term premium, but you did other things which enabled the lottery to decide that give them another chance. So you win election 2012. That's the point I am making. That's politics. So if you isolate within the realm of propaganda, it's catchy. Yeah. I mean, I've been in politics for a long time. No, I mean, when you are attacking it, yes, you have a case and you can use it. But you see, in true terms of governance, my goodness, an irresponsible government is the one that will decide that because I said 350, I have come, my predecessor had 200, he did 47, and some of them are various stages of completion. I'm not going to touch them. I am going to do my 350. Or even in addition, as you said, you can't do that because of the fiscal space. Realism, pragmatism will dictate that complete the unfinished business. Because after all, it enhances the general well-being of the Ghanaian. And indeed gives you even some advantage in implementing your free SHS. And is that not what is happening? The extra that has been added has given them space to fulfill some of the pledges relative to the free education thing. That is pragmatism. That's a sensible government. Forget what the people will say, the propaganda attacks. That will come.
Why will you refer to those attacks as propaganda?
Because
and not refer to the promises as propaganda.
No. The promises could have been propaganda, but he was not in office. He's coming to office. The reality check has come, and it happens to every government. Now you have to do the right thing. The right thing is that focus on completing the unfinished business.
Right.
When you have finished that, then you can proceed to do something. Now, my brother talked of principle, and he was relating it to people who bastardize
the macroeconomic indices.
See, I've been sitting on this table for many, many years. We were here when economic statistics put out by the Statistical Service were described as 419, kangaroo statistics, and what voodoo statistics by the NDC Forum for Setting the Record Straight. They even disputed the fact that the Ghanaian economy had quadrupled. But when they came into office and the rebasing was done, they accepted it willingly and said, oh, that's a true reflection of the Ghanaian economy. Randy, it is that point I am making, that when it comes to especially economics and financials, look, it's about time some of us take the lead in the depoliticization and demystification. You are talking about Obama did all those things, so people voted for him. You did all those things, people voted for Melsa Mahama. Same thing. You, in the most unlikely situation of winning election 2020, you'll be confronted with this same thing.
Very likely situation.
Well, that's opinion matter. You know, I never dream of NDC winning. Not that they are not capable.
I know.
It's a big party.
I know. Yeah.
I said sometime they won't win. They won. To my embarrassment. There are times I said they will lose, they lost. So that's fine. That's
your joy.
Yeah, to my joy. I dance like hell.
Maybe 20,
When Akufo-Addo won, I dance.
2021 you win.
No, I'm too experienced. I won't win.
Okay.
I'll be sad.
The man doesn't have tears
Okay,
again.
But please come in.
We need to
No,
move
Randy,
on.
just
If you can do it in half a minute for
I
me.
will do that.
yeah.
You know, first of all, on the issue of the 350 schools promised by President, then opposition leader Akufo-Addo. I think the essence of Uncle Kwaku's submission is that that was not a realistic promise. And so the president deceived the people of this country
Like
to
200
vote for him
was not
on the
realistic,
basis of
and
that.
so you deceived.
Number two,
Is
he says that,
idea?
okay,
That
the
200
sensible
schools were
thing
not realistic,
for
so
government to
it's
do now,
deception.
Uncle,
I'm sorry.
you're saying that the sensible thing for this government to do is to complete what they came to meet. Let's grant you that. Let's grant the MPP that. Is that what they are doing currently? They have abandoned all the school facilities they came to meet.
No. That's
Go to
not
the
true.
Ashanti region.
No,
Go to the
it's not
Greater
true.
Accra region.
It's not true.
They are not. They have abandoned these projects.
That is not true.
In fact, I went.
How come 13
If you
were
go to
added?
It's not
no,
factual.
those ones, the contractors were already on site. We
It's
had
not
already
factual.
paid them. They finished it. Go to Diasu today in the central region. You go there. There is a completed community day senior high school, fully furnished.
But did you check why?
I
But
I went there.
did
I
you
did a
check-
video there.
No, but
Go
did you
to the
check
Ashanti
why?
region.
Did you
Is
check why that? Look, the
So the
Mahama,
point
the
about-
incident there led to
About
the
the intervention of the chiefs.
It led to an exodus and security situation. So they are now coming back slowly.
No,
That's
the
why
point-
that
you see, the
school,
point I'm making is that,
particular
Randy-
school, which is completed, is unutilized now.
All right.
No, but the point
There's
I'm
a
making
reason.
here is that they are not even doing what you say they are doing. They are not completing the schools
I
because
said
they've
they
been
are
in
doing
office for
it.
22 months. How many of these schools have been
Randy,
completed?
they are doing
You
it.
indicated that we had awarded
research
contracts
I'm
for
doing.
124 schools. Do you know that when we utilized our facility for the 124 schools, the World Bank gave us an extra facility, which was supposed to be used to enhance access to secondary education? They diverted that and said that they were going to use that for vocational education. Today, they have nothing to show for that. So show us the actuals. Which
right.
schools have they completed?
Okay.
And
Say
this,
they are
this whole
doing it.
issue about the economy and all that, I think that Uncle Kwaku Baako is just rationalizing the failures of the
Okay, let's bring in our viewers
I'm a
at this
realist.
point.
I did say man.
Unfortunately, your friends are not. No, your friends are
No,
not.
but I'm not MPP.
Let's
I back
bring our
Akufo-Addo's
viewers on board.
president.
Yes, but President
Malik
Akufo-Addo
Adama
is not
says
realistic.
senior is justifying unjustifiable failures of the MP. Note senior, the NDC clearly admitted that the one-term energize will not be possible
When?
they were in power.
Randy, this came last week. When?
Is it the same as the MPP?
When?
I say no.
When did they admit that? They went into election 2012 even with that pledge.
All right. Now,
That was
Tafa
So
in
it's a
Amaya
fallacy.
says, now my party.
That
That's
we
why-
have accounted.
One-
now,
one
now,
district,
that's
one
why-
stadium.
now
Where
my
is it?
party has elected a
That's why we
competent
lost.
communications officer who's really
They,
doing a
they
good
promise
job.
better.
Sami has forced everybody, including MPP members, to argue on evidence-based issues. Kudos, Sami Mofa. Sami has done well this morning. Sammy Gyamfi's assessment to this government is as empty as a threat by an impotent man to impregnate a woman. Akufo-Addo government has employed 19,000 teaching and 14,000 non-teaching staff under the GES. In March 20,
Every government
additional
employs
8,000 graduate teachers have also been recruited for double track system. In December 2017 alone, government employed 14,600 trainees from the College of Education. This is George Kwaku from Adenta. My big brother Khalid sent me a picture which is fun. Life is also always not fair. I hear when you guys go past 60, you start thinking something. Okay. My brother, it should be 63.
Wow.
Yes.
Hey, that's no joke.
Sammy Gyamfi is on fire, confident and sector by sector appraiser. That might provoke Mr. Baako to order for some voluminous files to be delivered by drones. Interesting submissions and a definite lifting of the bar of accountability to the electorate. This is from Seth, my brother. Kakra from Okere says kudos to Sammy. You know Kakra? Nana Kakra. Okay. Right. Ben Mensah says the economic fundamentals from both political parties are viciously weak. We have continuously run a deficit budget for many years. We read annual national budgets year after year, and I don't see us cutting expenditures and taking a bold step to increase revenue. We need to be seriously bold to fix the macroeconomic factors for sustainable growth of the economy. The NDC government convened an economic forum at Royal Senchi in 2014, issued a Senchi consensus with homegrown economic policies, but we abandoned it. We need fiscal discipline in our budget and also monitor external economic activities that has negative effect on the economy. The current debate is to improve and increase the tax net. Let us be patriotically bold to educate the citizenry of the importance of doing